Well, hello there, Dippers, and welcome back to the third installment of the Sauce on the Side Fantasy Series. Today, we will talk about wide receivers. We will talk about the upper echelon, the death, taxes, and guys you can rely on every single week. We're going to talk about guys that we think are going too low, guys that you can get as steals, deep sleepers. We're talking like 10th round, maybe even later than that. So basically, just like we did the running backs, basically like we did the quarterbacks, we are going to hammer this through and try to give you the upper edge in your season-long fantasy league. And on that note, I'm Drake, your host, joined by the man, the producer, Mr. Leighton Pip Shaventone.
Round 3, the first Young comes in.
And Mr. Lex Glasgow.
No rest, Leighton. All night long. All gas, no brakes.
All gas, no brakes. I love that. We'll go all gas, no brakes with these upper echelon wide receivers, my friends. We are talking death, taxes, Ezekiel Elliott style guys at the wide receiver position. People that you can rely on week in, week out. I'll get us started. Death, taxes, and Julio Jones. Guys, I am sitting here scratching my bald head wondering why Julio Jones is falling into the second round. I'd take him in round 1 every single day of the week. If you're worried about the touchdowns, which has really been the only thing that you can worry about with Julio Jones, he had 8 touchdowns in the last 9 games, and he's going to flirt with 2,000 yards this year. He's had seasons where he's been over 1,600 multiple years, so I am all on board this Julio train. I've talked about it in the quarterback section, how we've seen Matt Ryan's touchdown numbers go up with Dirk Cutter and stay consistently up. So Dirk Cutter, as the offensive coordinator there calling the plays, I am all on board Julio Jones. Death, taxes, and Julio.
Death, taxes, and DeAndre Hopkins. We talked about on Monday with Deshaun Watson. The O-line, terrible. 2 sacks. Get that fixed regardless, though. Last year, Hopkins had 1,500 receiving yards and a 70% catch percentage. The ball goes his way. 70% of the time, he will catch the ball. 0 drop passes. He had Deshaun Watson.
115 catches, 0 drop passes.
He had Deshaun Watson's total trust. Deshaun Watson throw him the ball up in any situation. And a lot of times, somehow, he comes down with it. So DeAndre Hopkins, number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, wide receiver, and fantasy football.
He may be the most death, taxes, and DeAndre Hopkins guy in the league at the wide receiver position. In the last 2 years, he has been held under 50 yards 2 times. In both of those games, he scored a touchdown.
Guys, death, taxes, Devontae Adams. You know what's a good thing to be in fantasy? Aaron Rodgers' top target. What does Aaron Rodgers like to do? Throw touchdown passes. Devontae Adams caught over half his touchdown passes last season. You know, Aaron Rodgers, Packers, new system this year. What are you going to do? You're going to trust what you know. Devontae Adams has his trust, so he should have yours too. He's going to come out every single week. He's a threat to catch 2 touchdown passes every single week. 100 yards, 10 catches every single week. You want that on your team. You want Aaron Rodgers' top target on your team. Devontae Adams, first time in his career last year, had over 100 catches and 1,300 yards. I think he can have, upwards of 1,500 yards this year. He's going to have a big year.
I absolutely love Devontae Adams because if you look at the touchdown numbers, they don't really vary much. I mean, he had 70 catches 3 seasons ago, still had double-digit touchdowns. 70 catches last season, 2 seasons ago, still had double-digit touchdowns. 100-something catches last year, double-digit touchdowns. The guy's a touchdown machine. 46% of Aaron Rodgers' touchdowns over the last 2 seasons have went to Devontae Adams.
He's had 5 drops his whole career, too. He's reliable. He's going to get the ball.
And another guy, death, taxes, and Mike Thomas. 85% catch percentage last year. We talked about Drew Brees early on in the season. When Drew Brees was firing on all cylinders in the first 10 games, he caught 9 out of 10 passes that Drew Brees threw his way. He had a 90% catch percentage over the first 10 games. The only thing that makes me nervous about Michael Thomas this season is the 85% catch percentage from last year. That's almost unsustainable. That's unheard of in football, especially whenever you're going to be getting 140 targets. I don't know this for a fact, but I would say that's the highest catch percentage in NFL history on a guy who's had at least 140 targets. And at the end of last season, his touchdown numbers fell off. He had 1 touchdown over the last 6 weeks, 100-yard game over the last 6 weeks. I absolutely love Michael Thomas, but I would not put him in the category of the 3 guys that we had just named.
Death taxes and Keenan Allen. Last season, Keenan Allen finished 14 games, and he had 9 games of 15 or more points last season. He filled the number 1 target, threw a lot. He's great catching the football. He scores touchdowns, yards. He's perfect. Keenan Allen.
He's going in the 3rd round.
He's going in the 3rd round, apparently. That's way too low for Keenan Allen.
I agree with Keenan Allen, but death taxes, throw your morals out, Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
We don't care about off the field. We only care about on the field in fantasy. Tyreek Hill, he might be a bonehead, but he puts up numbers. He's one of the fastest guys in the NFL with the guy who we all think is going to be the top overall quarterback in fantasy. He's going to be his top target. There's always that chance where Tyreek Hill, he hasn't done anything all game, then all of a sudden he just strikes with that 80-yard bomb. He can go off at any minute. He's just a lightning rod.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Tyreek Hill. He's going to win you a ton of weeks, and he could potentially lose you some weeks, though. I look at him almost as his own separate entity outside of these other 4 guys. Do you agree with me there?
Yeah.
Where he had, last year, he had 7 games with 4 or fewer catches, but in the other 9 games, 6 of those were 100 yards. So, he like Lex had said, he's a lightning rod on the field. He's an absolute monster. But the only difference between him and the other guys is that he's not going to consistently give you that 20 points per game. He's going to shoot you a 35 one week and then maybe 7 the next week. Do you guys have any other death taxes players?
I do not.
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, so let's go ahead and head to the guys who might have a little bit of a question mark. The reason why they're outside of that upper echelon, wide receiver 1, guys that you wouldn't bat an eye taking in the first 2 rounds. Who do you guys have?
First guy, actually, Juju Smith-Schuster. I have him number 4 on my rankings, actually, but there's a question mark there. The number Antonio Brown. He is now the number 1 guy. By the end of last season, him and Antonio Brown's stats were extremely similar. He only had, 50 fewer yards, made 10 fewer catches. Very close. Now, Big Ben, number 1 guy. Big Ben, number 1 coverage as well. I think he'll be fine, but there's that question mark there.
I'm not worried about him one bit. I would almost put him in the death taxes scenario, but I haven't seen it yet. That's the only reason why I didn't. Without Antonio Brown, he's played 4 career games. He's had 2 games over 110 yards. He's had 3 touchdowns in 3 touchdowns in those 4 games. I would take him over Antonio Brown.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Guys, I think another guy that's going to be on a lot of playoff teams this year, T.Y. Hilton. If Andrew Luck is healthy, that's just a big bump up for any wide receiver in the league, especially when he has time to throw the ball like he does now. Last season, he had 10 targets per game. He might bust one week, but there's always that chance that he strikes 2. He's not going to score very many touchdowns, but there's a chance he has 1,500 yards with a healthy Luck. I think T.Y. Hilton is a big guy that you need to probably about that 3rd round. If he's still there, you need to get him.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. He had 1,200 yards last year, and he missed 2 games, and in a handful of those games, he was running with 1 arm. So as soon as he would catch the ball, he would either run out of bounds or just go down. He's a guy that gets open almost on every single play. I absolutely love T.Y. Hilton. One guy, and I'm going to scratch my head a little bit on this, is OBJ. I don't think that Eli was the problem. So if I look at the totality of Odell Beckham Jr.'s career, I think his best days are behind him. Did you know Odell Beckham's top 10 yardage games in his career came between the years 2014 and 2016? He has not cracked into one of his top 10 games since the 2016 season. In that time span, 2017, 2018, 130-yard games to Sterling Shepard's 4. So Sterling Shepard has still produced massive games with Eli Manning at the quarterback position at the same rate that OBJ was also producing. So I know that Sterling Shepard had played more games, but still, we're talking about a guy, Odell Beckham Jr., who was a lock for 100 yards almost every single game just 4 seasons ago compared to Sterling Shepard.
Yeah, wow.
That's my...
That is.
Yep. Next guy is Mike Evans. Last season, like I said before, Dirk Cutter, the coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He hates throwing Mike Evans in the red zone. Bruce Arians, much better coach, person in the league. Winston going to have a career year. I think it's going to be a great year for Mike Evans.
Mike Evans had the quietest 1,500-yard season ever last year.
He had 1,500 yards last year?
Yeah, he had 15. He damn near had 1,600 yards last year.
Yeah, it was insane.
Quietest ever.
It's the most quiet season ever out of Mike Evans.
Can I tell you guys why I am more on board with Mike Evans now than I ever have in my life, and I've always loved Mike Evans?
Bruce Arians?
Bruce Arians. Do you know... So, he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver this year. I can almost promise you that. Mike Evans has never had 100 catches in a season. I'm going to run you back the wide receiver ones for Arians over his career as a head coach. So, Larry Fitzgerald, in the 4 seasons that he was healthy, had 3 100-yard catch seasons, and Reggie Wayne, at the age of 34, had 106 catches whenever Bruce Arians was the head coach of the Colts. So,
yes, much better.
I think 4 of the 6 seasons that he's been a head coach, the wide receiver 1 has had 100 catches in a season. Mike Evans never had that. Mike Evans is only 25 years old. Untapped potential, probably a better wide receiver now than what either of those guys were at that point in their career. So, Mike Evans, I think he's going to be a top 5 guy.
No, I think definitely. You know, the kind of guy that I think could be on that edge this year, Amari Cooper.
Yes.
Look what he did when he went to Dallas last year. Just a completely different guy.
Yeah.
You know, what? He had like close to 1,000 yards just with Dallas.
Well, in the 9 games, if you average that out over a 16-game season, he actually had 1,290-yard pace, 11 touchdowns, 94 catches. That would all be career highs for a season.
Career highs. You know, he got out of Oakland. I think that was the best thing for him.
Yeah.
I think Oakland, he's just kind of stuck in the mud there. He wasn't really I don't think John Gruden really wanted him there at all. You know, John Gruden's proven himself to be kind of a dumbass.
Yeah.
Ever since he came back.
Look at his roster now. Vontez Burfict, Richie Incognito, and Antonio Brown.
Dude, I want to go on a car ride with all 3 of them in the car.
No, you don't.
Yes.
You won't come out alive.
No, I want to know what that conversation is like. Just give me a GoPro and see what it's like when I come out of there.
We might not ever recover the footage.
Might not.
But Amari going in the 4th round, man, I feel like that kind of transitions us right into our steals. I think if Amari Cooper's in any draft, I'm going to take him in the 4th round. What steals do you guys have?
One guy I like a whole lot is Adam Thielen. He's going to 4th later in drafts. Last season he got off to a really hot start with 8 straight games, 100 yards. I think he had tapered off a little bit. I think this year he'll be more consistent. Or he'll do at least what he did last year again this year. Adam Thielen, I like him a lot.
I think a good steal this year is Mike Williams out of San Diego. I've been on him every single year, but he's finally healthy. Last year he had 10 touchdowns and limited amount of play.
Yeah.
You know, he's finally gained the trust of Phillip Rivers, showing, hey, I can play. He made Deshaun Watson what he was in college.
Yes.
He is a big body, a good wide receiver. I think he could have 1,000 yards this year easy, you know, close to 80, you know, receptions, and he can hit that 10 touchdown mark easy again, especially if Melvin Gordon's not on the team playing this year.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I love Mike Williams. One guy that I think is the biggest steal, and I'm going to say it now, the biggest steal I have mentioned yet. The biggest steal, no matter which show we've done so far, the biggest steal of your draft is Tyler Lockett going in the 7th round. Guys, I called him the Antonio Brown of his draft whenever he was taken. And other than volume, he's basically proven me right. Last season, he had 70 targets, and he was the only player with over 900 yards to have fewer than 107 targets.
Wow.
So every single player, except Tyler Lockett, that had over 900 yards had at least 107 targets. Tyler Lockett had 70. He turned those 70 targets into 110 touchdowns. And it's not like this was a fluke season. Look back to his rookie year. He had limited work, had a ton of touchdowns. Now Doug Baldwin's out of Seattle. There's 73 targets that have to go somewhere. There's no way they throw the football less than what they did last year, because last year was almost a record-setting pace for running the football. Tyler Lockett this season will have the best season of his career, talking about receptions, targets, yardage. 10 touchdowns is a lot for this guy to repeat. But Tyler Lockett, if you get him in the 7th round, you should consider that an absolute huge steal. I would consider diving into Tyler Lockett even in the 5th round, which is 2 rounds higher than where he's going now. I am all aboard Tyler Lockett. What are you scared of? DK Metcalf taking a top off of a defense? That's it.
My favorite receiver this season is Emmanuel Sanders. He's a 47th overall receiver, and he's going in the 12th round 10-team PPR drafts. Last year, before he tore his Achilles, he was on pace for almost 1,200 yards. I myself, personally, is not a Colton Sutton believer. I think Colton Sutton is a good receiver, only better than Emmanuel Sanders. I think at worst, they're 1A, 1B receivers. I think Sanders will be able to have a 1,000-yard season again this year, and that's going in the 11th round.
Well, even whenever Demaryius Thomas was there, he still wasn't producing as a 47th overall wide receiver.
No, he was a top 20 wide receiver with Demaryius Thomas there. Drake, you're going to love this pick. Allen Robinson.
I love it. I have him written down.
He is finally healthy. He's had a full offseason healthy. You know, he came off that ACL injury into a new system where he was trying to rehab to come back. You know, he wasn't himself. He's just a couple of years off a 1,400-yard season. You know, that was his second year.
1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. He's finally coming into his own in this new system. Matt Nagy, I believe that's an amazing system. I think he could have every bit of 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns this year.
Yeah,
and he's going in the 6th round.
Yeah.
You get that out of a 6th round guy, you're gonna win your league.
I've seen on some ESPN leagues him going all the way into the 9th round.
Yeah.
That is crazy. One guy that I think is pretty obvious that a lot of people are whiffing on is Tyler Boyd. 8th round player. He missed 2 games last year, still had 1,000 yards. AJ Green is never going to be the AJ Green that we've seen before. I hate to be the guy to say it. He's now on the back half of 30. He might be 29, 30. The prime is past him. Tyler Boyd is now the best wide receiver on that team. I have no reason to be able to explain why he's going in the 8th round. Last year, for most of the weeks, I would say majority of the weeks, he was flirting with wide receiver 1. Sign me up, Tyler Boyd. I love that.
My next pick comes right after Emmanuel Sanders, and that's Devin Funchess.
Here we go.
Every year, boys. Devin Funchess, not in Indianapolis, with a good quarterback, Andrew Luck. Big bodied. Get in the red zone with him and Eric Ebron, but I think they would have to do at least some point in the season.
He's going to hurt Eric Ebron's production.
1 or 2 going to get open. I love Devin Funchess this season going in the 11th round of PPR drafts.
I'm going to stay on the big body guy real quick. I'm going to steal this from Lex. Kenny Golladay. Guys, Kenny Golladay is going in the 6th round for no apparent reason. He's one of 3 players with less than 120 targets last year to have 1,000 yards. So if you think about it, Golden Tate was there kind of clogging up the jam there early on. This is now Kenny Galladay's show. Basically for 16 games, as long as he stays healthy. Big-bodied guy. He can catch everything on the field. He's good after the catch. 6th round on Kenny Golladay is an absolute great price.
No, I completely agree with that. I think he's the guy there now. There's nobody there around him to take targets away from him. He's a big body guy. He's kind of got that same frame as Colin Johnson did, or not Colin Johnson.
Calvin Johnson. You're thinking
I'm thinking Texas right here. I'm thinking Texas football as it is. Another guy I kind of want to look at. We haven't really talked about him yet. Is Stephon Diggs. 2nd year with Kirk Cousins in that system. He's still going kind of high in drafts, but he's also that guy that can just any week just go off and win you a game. He's playing on the opposite.
He actually outscored Thielen in the remaining 8 games of the season last year.
He did. Everybody looked at Thielen because he had that streak of every game in a row with 100 yards. Stephon Diggs, I think, is the better wide receiver out of those two. If you're just talking like a pure route runner, pure everything, Stephon Diggs might be the better guy. I think Stephon Diggs could have a big year this year too, especially 2nd year with Kirk Cousins after even producing with Adam Thielen on the team.
I'm going to give you a 2nd round player, DJ Moore. 82 targets last season, nearly 800 yards as a rookie. Rookies never really produce at the wide receiver position, and he played with a hurt Cam Newton for 8 weeks of the season, and he still had 800 yards. Plus, the guy gets an occasional handoff once in a while. I think DJ Moore is set in line to have a big breakout season. Basically, Cam Newton's version of Steve Smith.
I reckon about this year too. One guy talk about Calvin Ridley. Last season, top 25 receiver. Problem with him is he played all 16 games last year. He had 9 games with 7 or fewer fantasy points and 7 with 15 or more fantasy points. So every single game, 15 or more, 7 or fewer. This season, I'm hoping they give him some more advance the route running so the team don't know what to look for every time he's out there. Because last year, every time, I swear, it was on a post, slant, or dragger he get in the football. I swear, every single time Tom catch ball where it was running. But kind of the guy I do think will have a very good season this year.
I agree with the Calvin Ridley pick. I think he's just going to gain more trust from Matt Ryan and in that system. You know, they're going to feed him the ball.
He had more touchdowns than Julio.
Yes, which is insane to say, you know.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Roddy White was probably the last guy that had more touchdowns than Julio.
I forgot why I played football.
Maybe even Tony Gonzalez.
It's been a minute. I forget
It's been a minute since then. Okay. So let's look at this, okay? A guy who I think you need to stash if you're in like one of those like dynasty keeper league kind of things. I think you need to go after Anthony Miller too from the Bears.
Oh yeah.
I think he's going to be that guy in a couple years. He's in Nagy's system. Who I just talked about Allen Robinson being there. I think it's going to take another step forward and be a top 12, top 10 offense in the NFL this year. I think Anthony Miller is a guy you definitely need to stash. He could break out this year and have every bit of 1,000 yards.
Oh yeah, he could realistically. I love Allen Robinson this year. I think Allen Robinson's gonna be the guy. But Anthony Miller could really give him a run for his money as far as production goes because he is such a talented wide receiver. You saw it in college. He was posting huge numbers for Memphis, back-to-back seasons right before he left for the draft. One guy that I kind of like, he's sneaky, D.D. Westbrook. Almost identical stat line to DJ Moore when Bortles was playing. So he was right in that 82 target range with 800 yards. Nick Foles can give him a different look. I wouldn't necessarily say reach on this guy. But if you're getting to the back of your draft where you're basically just pulling out players and just hoping that something sticks on the wall, D.D. Westbrook's the guy that I would be looking at if you're thin at the wide receiver position, hoping you could find that breakout talent.
Before we give the next guy, quick note about Julio Jones. Through the 8 seasons, Julio Jones has almost 3,000 more receiving yards. However, Roddy White had 1 more touchdown.
Wow.
First 8 years. Anyway, my guy, Christian Cook. Going in the teens of drafts, he's going to be the number 1 guy for Kyler Murray. If it works out, if the Kingsbury system works out with Kyler Murray this season, Christian Cook's going to have a monster 1,300, 1,400 yard season. Because he's going to be a go-to guy with Fitch on the other side of him.
And Kyler Murray is deadly accurate.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
I agree completely. Another guy I kind of look at, going back to my team, Valdez-Scantling.
Yes.
I think he's a big guy. He's fast. Aaron Rodgers has to throw the ball to somebody besides Devontae Adams every now and then, and it's going to be him by default.
Yes.
Because he's there. They drafted him pretty high.
He's very, very talented.
He's very talented. He is every bit as good. He could be a trusted guy like Jordy Nelson was a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that if you're sitting there around 15, 16, you have your kicker, you have your defense, everything, I think Marquez Valdez-Scantling would be somebody fine to add to the roster. One guy that I'm going to tell you, and this is basically, I've picked my whole team, and I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. You can either take the old veteran who's going to be a lock for 700 receiving yards, and really, you're never going to play the guy. Or you could take a guy like this late in the draft and hope it works out. Jalen Hurd. So Trent Taylor, it's come out that he is injured, and now next man up at the slot wide receiver position is Jalen Hurd, a guy who made the transition from running back to wide receiver. This is a guy that was so talented that Butch Jones started him at the running back position over Alvin Kamara. Mm-hmm. So once the ball gets in his hands, he is very, very good in the open field. And I think that him playing running back so long and just happen to be able to catch the ball is going to pay huge dividends for an offense that Mike Shanahan runs with the San Francisco 49ers. So Jalen Hurd, I think he's going to even get, potential looks in the running back sets. He'll be a screen pass guy. He had 2 touchdowns in the preseason game just this last weekend. He has a nose for the end zone. He's a very, very good player once the ball gets into his hands. Just so happens he can catch really well. So look out for that. That's something on the back half of your draft. I'm not telling you to go up in the 10th round and put Jalen Hurd. But if you run out of players, Jalen Hurd, he can make some noise this season.
Yep. I kind of like that. If you need a guy looking around 14, 15, Zay Jones. What round do you think he's currently going in right now?
Is he even getting drafted?
He's not getting drafted. Last season, he had 15 more fantasy points, 4 out of 7 weeks of the season. He finished the year with 27 fewer fantasy points than Calvin Ridley had. And he's not going drafted because Josh Allen is quarterback.
Zay Jones super talented too. He set the FBS record for catches in a season. I think he had like 141 catches as last year.
It was something like that, yeah. Zay Jones is super talented, super good running back, wide receiver. Probably the quarterback's Josh Allen. So Josh Allen can improve it all at 58% completion he had from last season. Zay Jones could have a very productive season being Buffalo's really only receiver.
Yeah, he's there by default. And last year, I think he was even top 10 in routes or in offensive snaps.
Yeah.
Which, if you know much about the Buffalo Bills offense, they didn't run a whole lot of offense because they were never on the field. So yeah, I definitely like Zay Jones late.
Not getting drafted. You can give it 15th round if you want to.
Yes. Anybody else you guys want to talk about?
I think a guy late you need to look at, with the Steelers, James Washington. They drafted him in the second round. He's looked good in the preseason. He's going as a 72nd overall wide receiver right now. If you get him in that late of the draft, he's going 145 overall. That's 14th round.
That means every wide receiver's everybody's number one's going, everybody's number two's going, and then they're starting to consider James Washington. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. He might not step up immediately and take over Antonio Brown's role, but he's going to step in and he's going to get some of those targets by default. When you lose a guy that's getting, every bit of 130 targets a season, it's got to go somewhere. James Washington's going to be on the field playing this year a bunch. I think he could definitely be a flyer that you take in that 13th, 14th round, and he could turn into a big season.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that there. Any other wide receivers that you guys want to mention that we have not?
How do you guys feel about Jarvis Landry?
I feel the same way I always have. He's going to run 5-yard routes, catch a lot of balls, have like 5 yards per target. I think Odell Beckham Jr. being there will actually help. But I'm not huge on Jarvis Landry.
Here's why I think he had a very, very down year from last season. OBJ is there now. He's not a long-going guy anymore. In 2017, he caught 112 passes for 987 yards. Last season, he caught 81 passes for 31 fewer for 976 yards, which is 11 yards fewer. Yards per catch last year went way up. OBJ even taking away some of those catches. So he might only be in 70, 75 catch range. So he's losing almost 100 yards receiving right there. If it's more than that, it's 12 yards a catch. So catch one catch, he loses 12 yards.
He had almost identical... Okay, so here's my thing. What round? Do you know what round he's going in?
6th.
6th round. He's going in the 6th round, okay? He had 40 more catches last year than...
31.
Than fewer. Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
40 more catches than Tyler Lockett, or 30-something... 40 to 30 more catches than Tyler Lockett last season. Similar receiving yard numbers, less touchdowns, and he's going a round higher than Tyler Lockett. And Tyler Lockett lost the wide receiver from his team, and Jarvis Landry gained another wide receiver on his team. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Look at fantasy football, man.
Yes. If you're sitting there and you're thinking about Jarvis Landry and Tyler Lockett is still on the board, do yourself a favor and draft Tyler Lockett.
Landry's one of those guys I'm going to be okay missing on this year, okay?
Absolutely.
I'm not touching him.
Absolutely.
Guys, I want to point out something real quick. We just went through all this, and we didn't talk about a single wide receiver from both the teams that played in the Super Bowl last year.
Well, I was going to ask you guys next about the trio of Rams.
Yeah.
God, because... Too
many mouths to feed. And that's by design.
Yeah,
and you look at a guy like Brandon Cooks. Okay, definitively, we could sit here at this table, and I could ask who's going to be the top fantasy scorer for the Rams. You could give me Cooper Kupp, I wouldn't blink an eye. You could give me Robert Woods, I wouldn't blink an eye. And I could tell you guys Brandon Cooks, and neither one of you guys would argue that. You know what I'm saying?
There's potential they all have 1,000 yards this year.
Yes.
I think when you're drafting, one of these guys is going to, if you need a wide receiver and those two guys are there, one will probably fall into your lap. That's who you're stuck with.
You're going to pick the wrong one.
That's the only way I'm taking one if it's the only one left. I know I should decide because in my ranking I have them 1, 2, 3 back to back.
I'm just going to hope everybody else in my draft misses on the guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I hope that I get the scraps being able to, move the chains there. And if you look at the Patriots, so now you have the Patriots with Julian Edelman, they have Demaryius Thomas, and now you have N'Keal Harry. I am not going to be surprised. Okay, so yeah, Julian Edelman, he could be the number one fantasy guy on that team. But Demaryius Thomas, we've seen it before, where a guy who we thought his best years were behind him goes to the Patriots, and then all of a sudden it's a huge resurgence. He could have the best season. And then you look at N'Keal Harry. He's the youngest. He's the most talented, most untapped potential on the team. He could have the best season. Mm-hmm. So in your fantasy leagues, you want to take the guy that you know is the absolute best. Mm-hmm. And if they're not the absolute best, you know who the absolute best is, and you know what scraps you're going to get, like a Calvin Ridley catching you close to 1,000 yards this year.
Yeah. Two of the guys going to miss 2 weeks of the season this year. AJ Green because of his injury, and Golden Tate because of his suspension. What round are you going to take them in?
It'll be late because whenever I look at the Giants, I think that Sterling Shepard will be the best guy there, and Golden Tate, he's really a one-trick pony. He's catching everything. He's a Jarvis Landry type player where he's catching everything close and then kind of has to build off and make his own stuff happen. And then AJ Green, I can't touch him unless it's super late. I would say I would dip into the AJ Green probably 3 rounds later than everybody else. So I'm probably not going to have AJ Green or Golden Tate rostered. I think Golden Tate is more apt to fall into my lap just because I know he's going to come back and be healthy. I know that there's not a Tyler Boyd standing across from him. So I wouldn't necessarily take AJ Green because somebody in your league will overdraft him. But I'd dip into the Golden Tate sweepstakes.
Yeah, AJ Green going around 5. I'd never get him right there. But Golden Tate's going around 12. I could fall into Golden Tate.
Oh, I could fall right into Golden Tate.
You know exactly what you're getting with him too. You know you're not going to get too much, but you're going to get the same thing you get every single year when Golden Tate's out there.
I absolutely agree. Any other situations or players that you guys want to discuss?
Did we take anybody from Carolina?
DJ Moore.
That'd be the only guy we take.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Nothing Curtis Samuel.
What about the Titans? Does anybody buy into the Corey Davis hype or any of the players that they've added?
Well,
I know they added AJ.
I don't buy into the Mariota hype.
No.
Like, is there any hype left on that train? Any coal burning? I'd be shocked right now, but I don't think Marcus Mariota enough to have a single guy from that team.
You know what I would be interested in, though? Is if at some point in the season, so Corey Davis will probably be rostered this year. That's just a simple fact. But if he could find his way onto the waiver wire whenever they make the transition to Ryan Tannehill, I would be interested in Corey Davis just because he's a much, much, much better Devontae Parker. And we saw Devontae Parker splash in some games and have some good games with Ryan Tannehill there. Now, he also had a lot of really, really bad games. But if Ryan Tannehill makes that, if they make the transition at any point in the season to Ryan Tannehill, I would trade a sack of peanuts to get Corey Davis on the roster.
Yeah, I don't know. Who's the coach? Is Vrabel still the head coach?
Oh, yeah.
He made playoffs last year. See, in Mariota's contract year, I don't see him not starting Mariota unless it's like week 14 and 15 of the season.
He gets hurt every year.
Well,
he
gets hurt, yeah.
Two, so.
I mean, let's say this. The Titans made the playoffs despite Mariota.
Yes.
True.
They made them despite Mariota.
Yes.
They would be better without Mariota.
I absolutely agree. I am not on board with Mariota at all. Any other wide receivers or situations, guys?
What about a guy like Sammy Watkins? Second year in Kansas City. Opposite of Tyreek Hill. You think he finally gains a little bit of trust of?
Is he still with Kansas City?
He is Kansas City. I won't have him come. I'm going to take him.
But we know how talented he is.
His name is bigger than this production.
Yeah.
Yes.
And people draft that in fantasy football.
I think
way
stay
too
away.
often.
I think stay away.
Yeah, I would stay away 100%. Yeah, I mean everybody produced there. Sammy Watkins had some decent games, but the name, if the name is bigger than what they produce, do not draft them. That's just like a fantasy football rule of thumb.
Yes.
If their name is bigger than the production, I would rather go out just like the Tyler Lockett and Jarvis Landry scenario. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could name 10 of those situations just at the wide receiver position. So if the name is bigger than the production, stay away.
Yep.
Anything else, boys?
We got everything covered.
Okay. So this concludes the tight ends, or the wide receivers. We will be moving to the tight ends. Hope you enjoyed it. And on that note, for Drake, for Leighton C, and Lex, Dippers as always.